How to find the highest probability of a SMT. How to know if a SMT divergence will have a high chance of holding. I'll give you a quick glimpse of a high probability SMT and how high likely is it to hold. In this case, you can see if you go to both time frame EURUSD and GBUSD, you can see the 9 a.m. and the 10 a.m. The 10 a.m. pushed out the 9 a.m. low, while EU did not push out the 9 a.m. low. So you had an SMT divergence. You can see right now at this moment it failed. Why did it fail? There's two reasons. First, there must be higher time frame, higher power. Since this is lower time frame, the 4-hour time frame had a range. 4-hour time frame had an SMT, and the 4-hour time frame had an SMT divergence. The SMT divergence that occurred here, you can see it got disrespected as well. But why? Why did the SMT divergence fail? Because the time. So now is higher time frame, higher power, as well as time. This SMT divergence occurred outside the Pacific time window, which is between 6 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. Since this occurred outside the time window, this failed. It absolutely got obliterated, right? You can see, voila, got smashed. How will you know a SMT divergence will hold? Let me give you a quick example of how a SMT will hold. Right over here. How come that this SMT divergence held? Because higher time from higher power. This was the weekly CRT. So it held. And you can see that when it had an SMT with this low, it doesn't matter because it had with the weekly. So this SMT overall did hold and it went up higher from here. Let me show you guys a little bit more example. How come did this SMT hold? Once again, it was because of the higher time from higher power. Since it's the weekly time frame, it has more power and everything. How did this SMT divergence hold? Once again, now the reason this hold again is higher time from higher power. There's a daily, daily SMT CRT and logic. And do not trade these SMT divergence without logic or without using higher time frame or without using time, because they all must align. They usually will always align and give you a perfect opportunity, because market will repeat, right? Since it repeats, you repeat those occasions. Now let me go back in the chart and show you guys more examples of it working. I'm pretty sure it was SMT with this low, pretty sure, right? So right over here, how come did this SMT divergence? This because there was SMT with the quality pair. How come? What did this SMT happen with DXY? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, DXY had an SMT with this. How did SMT hold? Was because of time and higher power. So in this case, you see it happened at 9 a.m. In this case, by wondering, well, what about this time here? This time had at 9 a.m. So it held overall because 9 a.m. is a Pacific time. And how this hold? Well, those is a 1 p.m. candle, it's not a Pacific time. It's not from 6 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. How come it still hold? It had a high power, but during this time you're not gonna trade that candle, right? So you're still chilling here. Now let me show you guys more examples. How come did this S&P divergence hold? Because higher time from higher power as well as Pacific time. This overall did hold and went up higher. Show you guys more examples. Another example would be right over here. How did SMT hold? Pacific time. How did other SMT hold? Because of higher power, higher time from higher power, as well as time, as well as logic. This overall, this SMT divergence made sense. How come this SMT divergence made sense? Because higher time was overall bearish. It was giving us more bearish, strong liquidity and bullish, as well as happened at Pacific time, as well as a higher time frame. So it was had higher, higher chance of it holding. Now, if you go to over here, the Pacific, the current price action of EURUSD, how come did this, this failed? Although there's a higher time frame, higher power, as I said, they all must align. The logic is there, the higher time frame is there, but the time isn't there. So since the time isn't there, market will highly likely not perform well and disrespect it. It's just because you can see market did disrespect it. And you can see other occasions when this market offered this other SMTs, there would have been no setups. You can't trade that time because you're not trading New York session or London session. And when it happened down here with this, why did this work out? Because it happened at the right time, logic, in a higher time frame. He worked out and he gave it a setup the right time. So he wanted to execute a trade, which this was on execute for 15.5 RR. So this is how you find the highest probability of a SMT is by using time, higher time frame, higher power, as well as logic. All of them must align. They cannot have two but not have one. They must always be there. They usually always be there. If they're not there, they're gonna face shit like this. And you're gonna face shit like this. You don't want that to happen too much, too often. If that happens too much or too often, it's gonna fuck you up. So you do not want that to happen too often. Since you don't want it to happen too often, you specifically wait for it to be logical, wait for it to be a higher time frame, as well as wait for it to be in the Pacific time. Timing for a New York session would be between 6 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. For a London session, I'm pretty sure 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Nothing above 4 a.m. So right when it hits 4 a.m., the time is right now. Why not above 4 a.m.? Because the last hour needs to close at a fair price. So it's not a time for the market to purge or liquidate anything. So yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, share, and join this link in the description down below. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.